I mean, the hypocrisy of Hollywood is overwhelming, but I won't get into all that, about how those people finally came out about this after the media made it as plain as day. I mean, they could basically berate the president for groping somebody, but they were afraid to berate this guy.
I'm Krista Parkinson, and you're listening to the My Grads Get Jobs podcast, where I talk to entertainment industry professionals about what they do, how they do it, and how my grads can do it too. Season 2 is proudly brought to you by Variety Business Intelligence, home of Variety Insight, V-Score, and the Variety Archives. If you're looking to work in Hollywood, Variety Insight is absolutely essential. I depend on it every day to provide me with the most up-to-date listings of contacts, companies, and projects in development. Head to mygradsgetjobs.com/variety to learn more and take advantage of their very generous student rates. Recently, I sat down with talent manager Danny Sussman. Danny works at the famed Brillstein Entertainment Partners and represents stars like Kaylee Cuoco, John Stamos, and Michael Rappaport. If you're an aspiring talent manager or someone seeking representation, you'll want to listen to this podcast twice. Danny delivers gold, like explaining the key differences between an agent and a manager, the importance of knowing how to treat people regardless of their level in the food chain, and the power of asking for help at the beginning of a career. Danny's eyes lit up whenever he spoke about a client or one of his USC students, which only reinforced to me his reputation as one of the most passionate and knowledgeable managers in the business. So without any further ado, Mr. Danny Sussman. What is the Danny Sussman story?
I was a history major, and years later, I look at that and I said to myself, it was very connected to what I do now because of so many biopics, because of so many documentaries about historical things, because of what Gary Getzman and Tom Hanks have done with the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. I also think something very, very important, and I teach it at SC all the time because I make sure that there's a lot of history that's taught. For example, every week I give my students a very famous televised speech that changed the world. And I use that as a platform to talk about how television has changed the world on millions of occasions. And if we're watching television on our phones or on our laptops or on whatever kinds of microchips there are, it's still the same thing. I remember the night before I moved here, I asked my father, who's the smartest guy that I know in the world, what he thought of this actual move I was making. He said something to me that I'll never forget, and anybody that listens to this should really remember this. He said that opportunity is a door that's made out of gold. It only opens up every so often in life. And when it does, one has two responsibilities. A, to recognize it, and B, to have the courage or the balls to walk through. So when I moved out here, this was during the time where there was no such thing as cell phones. I hated LA, I hated everything about it. It was too big. But I was working at this company when a woman named Kathleen Summers, who was the head of development for Kuroko Pictures, came into my office one day. And she said, I want you to read this script for me. And I said, why? And she said, I've noticed that you're a loudmouth, opinionated New York Jew, and I want to know what you think about my script. I said, that's a good enough reason for me. And the script that she threw down on the desk was Total Recall. And so I read that script, and the next day she asked me what I thought of it. I go, oh my God, reminds me of Blade Runner, Philip K. Dick, this is going to make a great movie. I'm going on and on and on. She's going, what exactly do you do here at Kuroko? I'm like, well, I'm writing about this company's stocks and bonds and the financial news. And she said, why? She goes, you should be an agent. And I said, what's that, like real estate? And she introduced me to somebody at William Morris named Cary Woods, and I went over there to meet him. And before he even said hello to me, I sat in his office for 30 minutes, and the phones are ringing, and assistants are running in and out of there, and there's action, and I'm looking around going, I don't know what the fuck is going on here, but whatever it is, I want to be in the middle of it. And I called my father, and I said, look, I don't know exactly what this job is. I said, but I'm going to make $14,000 a year. I said, it has to do with movies and television, and people skills are important. Public presentation is important to the job. And I said, do me a favor, I think I could be good at it. Will you pay my rent for 1 year? And he agreed. And the rest is kind of never looked back. I was at William Morris for 10 years, from 1988 to 1998. I got made an agent after 2.5 years as an assistant. I treated it like a military operation. I didn't do anything else but read scripts and work, read scripts and work, read scripts and drive cars, to deliver packages, whatever anybody asked of me. And at USC, I call it taking out the garbage. Somebody said, we're having a seminar tonight, who's going to clean up the pizza boxes? You always volunteer. Yes. What's the answer? Yes. Can I get a favor from you? Yes, 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 yes. I began to see the ceilings of working at a big agency. I began to see that big agencies have their own corporate agendas. And I felt that in order to be an individual and build your own business, one would have to sort of step outside of those ceilings. And I'd always been very good friends with Cynthia Pett at Brillstein. And fortuitously, after I'd been at William Morris now 10 years, she called me up and she goes, look, we're looking to make it a little bit bigger over here at Brillstein, and we know that you have some taste. Would you be interested in meeting? And my first reaction was, no, I'm a William Morris agent. I got my name on the door. Because I started at William Morris training program with 32 others, and at the end there were 2 of us left, me and one other guy. When I met with Mark Gerbitz and I met with Brad Gray, God rest his soul, and I met with Lloyd Braun, I saw that there was an opportunity to sort of be your own person over here, make your own niche, and I felt that the experience that I had with William Morris, having been through some pilot seasons, having worked in the independent world, would be very helpful at a place like Brillstein. I was here 1 week, and I had brought 5 clients with me. I got a call from Kevin Uvain, and he said, would you like to come over here to my office? I'd like to have a meeting with you. And I said, yeah, sure, And I had nothing to offer. I had no clients. I was literally brand new to the management business. It was the most monumental meeting I ever had in my life because he never took a call. He never took his eyes off me. And he made me to feel like, even though I was brand new at this, he made me to feel like the most important person in the history of the world. And the last thing he said to me, he goes, if you ever need anything from me, please call me. Not long after that, Mark Gerbitz, who's my boss and friend over here, came to me and he sat down and he said, listen to me, I know that you're interested in independent cinema and all that stuff. He said, but there's going to be a golden age in the world of television and you should get in it. And lo and behold, FX goes from having MASH episodes and auto racing, now they have 26 original shows on. USA, TNT, all these cable places blow up with original programming. And I started to flourish at this because I loved reading the drama scripts. Drama, a good drama pilot, if the characters are good, you can imagine what it will look like in episode 16.
Tell me about your best day that you've ever had as being a manager.
Closing the renegotiation on Kaylee's Big Bang deal for seasons 8, 9, and 10 was one of them. There's not one. That was great because we worked on that forever. Here's a better story. John Stamos met a writer named Dan Fogelman, and he met another writer named Danny Chun, and they put together a show called Grandfathered. And Grandfathered was a really, really well-made show and got picked up by Fox. They made 13 episodes. The ratings were marginal, but not network ratings were marginal anyway, but they liked the show. They were proud of it. They picked up the back 9. And the show invariably got canceled because sometimes a network show will disappear for 6 weeks of hiatus and the network doesn't have money to market it and remind viewers that it's coming back. It has to already be a big hit for viewers to find it. In the first year, it's difficult. So that show got canceled. And John, who had put a lot of personal currency into the show, he was involved in thinking about the music and thinking about the other cast. I mean, he was a producer on it as well as a star and really worked hard. And we were all proud of that show. And the fact that it didn't work was really much of a bummer. I hope that thing caught that. A colleague of mine in a staff meeting over here pointed out that in a Ryan Murphy show called Scream Queens, they were looking for a 50-year-old kind of doctor to play a crazy doctor for 10 episodes. I called the agents at William Morris, and I said, you guys take care of Ryan Murphy. Call Ryan Murphy and ask him what he thinks about John. Ryan Murphy calls back those agents 10 minutes later and says, I think that's the greatest idea I've ever heard in my life. I called Dana Walden and Gary Newman at Fox. The next thing you know, we have an offer for John to go on to do 10 episodes of Scream Queens for decent money. Literally not 6 weeks after his show was gone, Grandfathered. And the greatest day ever was making a call to John Stamos. I was at Kennedy Airport, and the agent was Brant Joel. Brant Joel and I called John Stamos and said, Ryan Murphy is hiring you for a seasonal arc for good money on Scream Queens at Fox, the network that canceled your show. And there's a guy that literally was so happy that he would have a place to go as an actor, that somebody wanted him after that cancellation. Because when you're the top line of a show and it gets canceled, that's a very public humiliation in a lot of ways. And it doesn't matter how the media spins it, it just feels bad. To make that call to that kid who's the nicest guy in the world, John Stamos was one of the nicest, greatest people I've ever known. I love him like a brother. Literally, to call him that day and say that you got a job from one of the most important showrunners in the business was a great day managing actors.
Tell me the difference between an agent and a manager.
I'm going to use a reference from 2 games that I love. One is soccer, one is hockey. An agent is somebody that's trying to score a goal. An agent is a center forward. An agent is somebody that's trying to attain a job for a client. A manager is a goalie. A manager watches the entire field. A manager deals with jobs, scripts, press, business managers having to do with financial, travel, creature comforts. A manager stays with a client on a job the entire life of the job. An agent, when they book the job and the lawyers get involved in the deal making, the agent goes on to the next job. The manager has to stay with every last little detail, including if you're on a television show, when it's an ensemble, the client will say, hey, they're not writing for me. You know what I mean? You have to mix it up. We prevent trouble. An agent's job is how come? Part of an agent's job is to make clients that they don't represent unhappy. How come you didn't see that script? How come your trailer's so small? How come your billing is so shit? How come she got that job and you didn't get it? A manager's job is why not?
So what does somebody have to do to be a client?
For somebody to become my client, I would like to get a referral from somebody that I respect greatly. A producer, a studio executive, a great publicist, an agent. But remember, when an agent gives you a referral, they're giving 7 other managers a referral too. And then that artist, whoever he or she may be, has to have done something on television, stage, or movies that moved me.
Okay, so you probably get this question all the time because you teach at USC,
Right.
and everybody wants to be represented right out of the gate. What kind
Well,
of
the
advice?
people that I teach are not our actors. When actors ask me, because I give speeches at actor seminars all day, how do I get represented? I'm like, first of all, my feeling in Los Angeles, there's a lot of great classes to be part of, okay? If you get a call from Leslie Kahn saying this actor that's been in my class is starting to break, go meet them, that matters. So I always think that that's an important first step. And then there's a catch-22. It's like, do something to get repped, but the rep's not going to be necessarily the one to get you to do something. Whenever I get a client, the person's already got some things to look at and to talk about.
They've got some things going, and then you just make them bigger, better, or give them more exposure.
Not bigger, not better. I give more opportunity. I expose them more to the community. I look at various things, like in clients that I can tell you many, many different episodes that Noah Wiley did on ER. I can tell you like what he did on Falling Skies. I can tell you what he does on Librarians. I can point to a lot of Stamos' work. If somebody says, I need a piece of tape on John Stamos that says X, I can find it.
Remember it.
And that's, I think, the most important part about being a rep. You must have a great memory. You must remember movies. You must remember television shows. You must remember people that you met, actor performances. Like, I had the opportunity to just have a conversation with somebody that I admire greatly, Liev Schreiber, at an event like a year ago. And, I was able to reference not Ray Donovan, but like some of his earlier work in theater and a movie that he did with Ed Swick called Defiance that I loved him in. When you meet an actor, you need to know what they've done. One of the directors I've always admired was Oliver Stone. And every time Oliver Stone directed a movie, I always wrote him a letter afterwards. And I remember one night at a Sundance party, Oliver Stone comes into the party, drunk as a skunk, with Mary Vernew. And Mary's like, do you want to meet Oliver Stone? I said, are you kidding me? So she takes me over, I shake hands with Oliver Stone. I said, I'm Dan Sussman. And he had some wine in him, and he looked up and he goes, I love your notes. They remember. Everybody remembers. I always tell actors that when they go in to read for a casting director, you better be prepared, because Francine Maisler or Deborah Quiller or Ellen Lewis or one of these people are going to remember a good audition or a bad one. If you give a good audition to one of those women, you're going to get a call back on something else. People remember. By the way, there have been 8 of my former students that have worked full-time at Brillstein and have gone on to other things too. My current assistant is a USC grad student who has a law degree and has passed the bar. And she's coming to the end of her 2-year contract with me, and we're trying to put her at Warner Brothers, or trying to figure out what to do with her. I'd like her to stay here and do business affairs, but we don't know if that's in the cards. We'll see. I write a lot of letters in the behalf of the students. There's certain people that I just call and say, meet this person. And then the person has to go make something of themselves over there. And for example, I know one of my students now just got an internship at WME in the music department. So he wants to meet with me next week in office hours and discuss how to make the most of that. So when the opportunity calls, it's like you have to transition that into something huge. Bernie Brillstein taught me something. I was here like a year, and there were these memos that were released having to do with what's called the Mondo Press Day. So all the people at NBC on the new shows are called down to this huge photo shoot. And everybody in the world is copied on this memo. And I remember that they had spelled my name horribly, horribly wrong. And I called up and I started screaming at this. I'm Dan Sussman, and I've been doing this for 11 years, and you can't spell my name wrong. Asshole. I hung up the phone, and I kind of looked up, and there was Bernie Brillstein at the door of my office. And he said, kid, that girl that you yelled at, do you know who she works for? I said, now my head's like going down. I'm like a dog with a tail going between my legs. My ears are down. No. That's Kathleen Tucci. And she's been a friend of Brad Gray and mine for 30 years, and she's done a lot of great things for this company. Nobody who works in my company ever yells at an assistant like that, ever. Don't ever do that again. I wrote a letter to that assistant and to Kathleen Tucci, the likes of which none of them ever read afterwards, apologizing for what I had done. I've never yelled at any assistant ever yelled at an executive or an agent either, although some of the agents deserve it. Bernie taught me, treat people the way you want to be treated. And every assistant's going to be an executive someday. And like Harvey Weinstein, it's a great example. Forget about this. I'm not even going to talk about the sex stuff. Just like the way he bullied directors. And He had 25 years where he was unstoppable as a producer with great taste and all that. But the way that he dealt with people, that's why there's not a lot of people that are catching him during this fall. People are glad, okay? I mean, the hypocrisy of Hollywood is overwhelming, but I won't get into all that, about how these people finally came out about this after the media made it as, as plain as day. I mean, they could basically berate the president for groping somebody, but they were afraid to berate this guy until it was okay. But even, the sexual stuff is not what I'm talking about. Harvey was a bully to a lot of people. Harvey didn't treat assistants well. So he's getting hurt by that also. He threw directors out of their own edit bays. That's not cool. I mean, I don't wish any bad upon anybody. And there's always second chances for everybody in this business, so maybe the guy will make amends someday. He does have great taste. Some of the best movies that have ever been made have been made by him and his company. Anyway, enough to say.
What's one piece of advice that you could tell a 20-something who's in college now, let's say not in LA or New York? What can they do?
Perfect. My advice is to read the Robert Frost poem, The Road Less Traveled. I want you to all think about why LeBron James is the best basketball player in the world. It's not what he can do with his right hand. It's all the hours that he spent working with his left hand. If you're 20-something getting out of college, there's an opportunity to try the thing that you're not good at, okay? Because you're not going to have that opportunity when you're 30. When you're 30, you're going to be on a path somewhere. So when you get out of USC or you get out of a school, try something different. This is the time to do it. Try the road less traveled. You never know. I'm going to quote a great movie that won an Academy Award for Best Picture in 1985, Chariots of Fire. There's 3 quotes from that movie that are memorable. Number 1, with all that you seek, leave time for it to find you. It always does. Number 2, with all the running around that you do, leave time for standing still. And the last thing, which is the most important, is there's a scene where Harold Abrahams loses the race and he's saying to his girlfriend, he goes, I don't know what to do, all the training, all the work that I put in, all the time that I put in, what do I focus on now? And she said, focus on winning the next race. Because no job interview, no meeting, nothing is the be-all and end-all of anybody's life and future. It's just another step in the journey. So enjoy it. You're just getting out of school right now? Good. Try anything, try everything that you don't think you're best at. Read the Robert Frost poem. It is very telling. That's what I got for you.
That's amazing. Thank you, Danny. This was incredible. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Feel free to drop me a line or leave a review on iTunes. I'd love to hear from you. That's it for this week. I'll see you on the next episode of the My Grads Get Jobs podcast.